I'd like to start by welcoming Dwayne Campbell, who's founder and CEO of BookFusion, and Toland, Customer Success Manager, also at BookFusion, to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about how to secure, manage, and monetize your content using digital libraries. We also have joining us Anne Chuang, so I should have tried before, Anne Chuang, who's the user experience researcher at Akamai Technologies, a really well-known firm in this space. They're going to be talking a little bit about the platform that BookFusion offers, as well as a customer example of how that works today. I'm going to turn it over to Dwayne. I want to remind everybody who's on, if you have questions, best case scenario for us is to put it in the Q&A. That's the easiest place for us to check it. But if you also want to just ask a question, you feel more comfortable using chat, we'll be looking at both throughout. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Dwayne Campbell.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Brian. Good afternoon again, everyone, and founder and CEO of BookFusion. And today we'll quickly go over how to secure, manage, and monetize your content via digital libraries. And so to start, as most of you might already know, the demand for digital content has accelerated due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But cost-effective, protected access remains a stumbling block for many parts of the world or for many organizations. All right, and so before looking at some of these problems and how we solve them for our clients, let's look at pre-COVID trends. And so for the past couple of years, the growth of ebooks would have appeared to have stagnated if we only looked at high-level data. However, the shift from print to digital, albeit slower than expected, was still happening across different industries and in certain niches. And so before looking at those trends in the ebook industry in general, let's use a parallel industry, the music industry, for a comparison. So in 2005, you could see that the format that dominated the music industry was CDs and vinyl. And so, but fast forward to 2019 or to today, the bulk of the revenue comes from digital formats, even though people still buy CDs and vinyl today. All right, so let's focus on the ebook industry. So using the Gartner hype cycle, you can see that what the period that the industry was in was just about completing the trough of disillusionment. And so in this particular period, you had various failures from OME device disappointments, spoiling the reading experience, failures in negotiation with publishers and platforms, pricing issues, and a bunch of other problems that come with a new industry. However, we are now on our way towards the slope of enlightenment, where you'll see renewed solutions being launched, sustainable growth, and the adoption of ease. What COVID did for the ebook industry was provide it with a massive jolt that made apparent existing trends. So the trends that we're seeing today with the growth in E, they were still happening, but COVID just jolts those trends or jump-started. So some of these trends include technical shift. So when you look at the technology over the course of the last decade, there have been significant technology improvement, such as screen resolution, battery life, storage media, processing speed have all improved significantly. Other industry players have spent the last 10 years building out infrastructure required for the expected growth of ebooks. Then the transition to digital. The industry has been undergoing a technical transformation for the last couple of years, which is likely to continue. The ebook market is growing at a much faster pace in emerging markets, which we will elaborate on further in the presentation, as more devices, smart devices begin to be adopted, smartphones, tablets, and e-readers. You also have a new generation consuming content, which has been an existing trend. A younger generation has grown up accustomed to capabilities that paper books can never offer, from consuming digital content such as video, audio, and social media. And lastly, platforms that provide new and improved reading experience. So upcoming platforms like BookFusion are focused on the experience and jobs to be done of the readers. We're focused on book sales, but that is not the primary focus initially. And this is because we believe that once folks enjoy reading content and getting their jobs done, that will in turn drive sales. And so just for example, this includes my building out new highlights and annotation solutions that goes beyond just simply highlighting text and changing colors. This includes really bringing new experience to capitalize on digital format of books, not just delivering a flat representation of print on the screen. Even though EPUB 3 has existed for a while, there are not many richly interactive ebooks available today. These trends and upcoming changes overall to the reading experience will not only result in more sales for readers, but sustainable growth as ebooks continue to be adopted. All right, so now due to the pandemic, we have new ways of working that are here to stay. So whether we want to admit it or not, the way we work will never be the same. A variety of companies in industries from technology to insurance have now adopted permanent work from home policies or hybrid policies. This new way of working has also resulted in a shift in the way learning and development is done from small organizations with just 25 employees to enterprise companies with more than 1,000 employees. Similarly, when looking at the educational segment, the pandemic has forced districts, schools, and teachers out of their comfort zone. They had to adopt new tools and teaching techniques to teach students. Some of these changes are now here to stay. The classroom will always be relevant, but now there will be hybrid approaches and deeper integration with digital content. All right, so where are the opportunities for publishers? So, and you might be wondering, how can publishers capitalize on the renewed interest in digital growth? And so very easy, by making content easily accessible for potential customers to get access to your content that are willing to pay. There are customers that really want access to content, but it's not properly packaged in a format that they want, or they're restricted. They can't purchase it on other platforms due to their restrictions, or they're not able to license content for schools or for their business organizations easily. And so very simply, publishers can tap into some of these new revenue streams by partnering with platforms like BookFusion. And so you might be wondering, what is BookFusion exactly? And so you can think of BookFusion really as a platform that allows readers or organizations really to obtain, organize, read, share, and derive value from ebooks, regardless of whether you're reading to learn, whether you're reading for work, or you're just reading for pleasure. Now, let's look at the business segment where we have seen a lot of uptick. What BookFusion does for businesses, we allow business organizations to create their own private digital library solution to easily distribute and give secure access to their proprietary content that they created internally, training manuals, white papers, and other content, while also allowing them the flexibility to license content that they wish from publishers. And what this does for a lot of these organizations, they're not looking for just having employees read on ebook platform and then consume content in silo on another platform. This kind of fragmented experience. They're looking for a single solution that allow employees to have content that they license from publishers, content that they created internally, so that they can read, consume this content, and use it in context of their work and jobs to be done. Now, looking at the education segment, we work with schools and ministries of education to launch their digital initiatives, providing them that a platform that gives access not only to their own content, and similar to businesses, again, being able to license content from publishers as well. And so this segment now leverages a lot more of the EPUB 3 standard and interactivity. So where are these opportunities, and what are these opportunities you speak of? So these opportunities are really all around you, as publishers, if you spend the time to look. They're in mature markets like the US, Europe, and they are quickly growing in emerging markets like the Caribbean and Latin America. Using the education segment, for example, ministries and other large educational entities in the emerging markets spend upwards of 3 to 6 million USD per year for content. And this budget was primarily focused on physical books. And now this budget is being shifted to ebooks as well. We have also seen uptick from primary all the way up to tertiary institutions are now also focused on adopting ebooks, right? What we have observed, however, in the primary and the more lower grades that educational institution that want to adopt ebooks, they require content to be interactive. And so, again, this is a particular niche where if the publisher focused on just looking at what are sales like for ebooks in primary without looking at the deeper reason as to why the sales are not high, they would have missed the opportunity. And so what we realize is that the primary segment, they require content to be interactive. And just if you think about it, content for this segment in the physical form, it's usually workbook, interactive questions that they have to complete and activities. And so for ebooks to be adopted in that segment, publishers would need to make an investment to create interactive ebooks. Now, again, looking at business organizations, as mentioned, due to the rise in work from home and remote work, business organizations, large and small, are looking for solutions to transition their physical library in the workplace to a digital one. One of the stumbling blocks that we have had here when working with these organizations is that we simply cannot get the licenses for content. And that is changing as we go into 2022. And so we see this as an opportunity for publishers to not partner with platforms like BookFusion and other platforms that are providing solutions to these organizations outside of just the general ebook industry, right? And so these are markets that you would not be able to tap in otherwise, because these organizations generally do not just buy books from, let's say, Amazon or other popular ebook platforms today. All right. And so from our point of view, we have already went ahead and started partnering with several publishers. So we have partnered with Oxford University Press, Hot Education, Macmillan, Collins, and several other publishers not listed here today. And so what we'll do, I'll quickly go over some of our other customers. And so we currently power the digital library for the Parkinson's Voice Project. And so this is a nonprofit organization that provides speech therapy and content to both health providers and patients. And so what the problem that they had, they wanted a solution that would allow them to, one, digitize and upload their own content, and also provide seamless and user-friendly access to patients that have the Parkinson's disease. So it should be easy for them to access the content. It should be easy for them to consume this content. And also a solution that allows them to easily license content to healthcare providers like hospitals that treat patients with the Parkinson's disease. All right, our next customer that we have is the Ministry of Education that's based in Jamaica, and they launched a large-scale digital initiative. And so what they were looking for was a solution that would allow them to power their own digital library, their own repository where they have created interactive EPUB 3 books, for example, and other audiovisual content that they want to give seamless access to. One of the requirements is that obviously DRM, but also that students should have seamless access while offline due to limited internet connectivity. And so what our solution does for them, it allows students to interact with the books offline, but not only that, they can complete these questions and answers leveraging the EPUB 3 format. And then once they have internet connectivity, all of that is synced back to a central location. They also work with us to license content from publishers as well, from to match their curriculum from grade 1 all the way up to grade 13. All right, and last but not least, we also have Akamai Technologies and is on the webinar today that will dive much deeper into how they use our solution. And so I'll just leave it as they use our solution to power the digital library for their organization. And with that said, thank you for listening. We'll now transition to Anne that will go over how Akamai Technologies uses the BookFusion solution to power their digital library.
Great, thanks, Dwayne. So hi, everyone. My name is An Trong, and I am a user experience researcher at Akamai Technologies, where I help provide actionable, meaningful, data-driven insights that represent the voice of our users. So a little bit more about myself. I've been at Akamai for a little over 4 years now. And prior to starting this new role around 4 months ago, I was a business analyst on the engineering learning team where I helped onboard BookFusion. And Akamai itself is a global content delivery network, or CDN, where it also provides cloud services and a cybersecurity company. So in other words, we basically provide web and internet security services for our customers. Next slide, please, Dwayne.
Oh, do you want to share your slides, Anne?
Yeah, yes, I can share.
Give me 1 second. Could we stop share?
Sorry about that.
Yes. Give me 1 second. I could pull it up really quickly though. 1 minute.
Oh, I just clicked share.
All right, great.
What's that? My screen okay?
Yeah.
So there were a few problems with our Residual Solutions before we found BookFusion. So our engineering organization had a need for a digital library solution that would not only give us seamless access to internal documentation, videos, and other content, but also the ability to license content from other publishers and authors if needed. So our Residual Solutions did not meet our requirements through the following here. So like multiple ebook formats. There wasn't a repository where we can store different types of ebooks for our users or for our employees at Akamai. There was silo platform and communities. So we have a lot of different engineering teams across Akamai, and there wasn't really a good way for them to collaborate and talk about certain new learnings that they found out through the company or best practices. So we wanted a platform where we can do that and have our employees collaborate with each other and be able to learn from one another. And also limited sharing and social options. So this ties to that, where folks only were going back through the internal book clubs at the company, but there wasn't really a way to kind of share things digitally, or a platform to kind of share their thoughts or about just things that they just read or learned about within the company. And we also had a vendor prior to BookFusion where they provide a service where we can access all their content in their library, but only a certain percentage was accessed. So I would say around 10% of the content they offered was consumable by our employees at Akamai. So we were looking for a solution where we can really see the demand of our users, see what things they want to learn, what topics they want to learn about, and really get kind of that curated content for them, right? Just to be more aligned with their learning goals and objectives. So that brought us to BookFusion, where they had this digital library solution, and it met several of our key requirements and met our pain points as mentioned earlier in my previous slide. So we were able, with the BookFusion digital library, we were able to create and upload our own proprietary content to BookFusion itself, and then have that content be accessible throughout the whole company. We have over 9,000 employees at Akamai. So we started with the engineering organization in particular. So that is predominantly the population at Akamai itself. So probably around 4,000, I would say. So with that, there's a lot of different teams at Akamai, different engineering teams, and they were really able to upload their own content, share it out with folks, and then start the collaborating aspect of that. And not only that, but also being able to request their own content. So that brings us to procurement requests. So Dwayne's team helped us build this tool here where users can go into this specific page and search for books in their catalog and see what content was available and what was not available, and really provide a business justification of why they wanted to request these titles, for example. So it really made it really easy and simple, whereas we didn't want users sending emails requests to us and asking to see if they can ask that. Dwayne and the team provided this excellent solution here where they can access their database, see what's available, and really make a seamless process here so that they can request it from the publishers, for example. So I think the content today is not very extensive, but Dwayne and team have mentioned and communicate to us that they are working actively to integrate with core distributors and partner with key publishers, which should be done in 2022. So we're really looking forward to that and the enhancements coming there and the partnerships. So as mentioned, BookFusion also allows us to integrate our own created content into the same digital library solution that we use to license ebooks and publishers and authors. So these screenshots show the user integration interfaces that employees use to borrow and read content from our digital library. So the UI is very simple, makes it easy to use, and really our users and customers are able to go into the library within seconds and search for content that they're interested in, check them out and add them to their bookshelf, and have been able to just collaborate and share with other folks has really been a lot of positive feedback around that for our users. So yeah, the UI has been improved throughout since we've onboarded BookFusion, and this has really been a seamless process of how we access books as a company and how our users interact with it itself. So just to wrap things up, I mean, BookFusion has been a great resource for our employees at Akamai, just to learn and collaborate. And we're really excited for the new features that are coming away around social collaboration and partnerships that will enhance their repository for ebooks. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Anne.
So Dwayne, we have a few questions, and I'm sure we'll have several more, and we have time to be able to answer them. But would you like me to pose them, and then we can kind of kick this around with you, Dean, and Anne?
Yes. Do you want us to go wrap up the presentation with Dean, or you want us to do Q&A then continue the presentation?
I think we'll wait for let's do Dean, and then we'll go to the questions. Thank you.
All right. All right.
All right, can everybody see my screen?
Not yet. Yes.
All right. Well, my name is Dean Toland. I'm the Customer Success Manager at BookFusion. What that essentially means is I work with our partners like Akamai, our other business and education partners, as well as just individual users who have chosen to upload their libraries to BookFusion for reading. What I do is I work with everybody on feature requests, on support, on learning. I've built our how-to articles, and then I also work with Dwayne and our publishers to try and continue to increase the content that we have and make sure that that content is not only available for our end users, but is provided in a secure fashion that protects the publishers and the content that they're giving us. So what we have here is just a quick look at a few different screens from our business dashboard. This is where companies and educational institutions would be able to upload their books. On the left half of the screen, you'll actually see the initial landing page. Once businesses have uploaded the books that they have purchased and licensed, they'll get a landing page here that shows them all of the different titles. You'll see on the second row there, when clicking on a title, you actually get a multitude of options to update cover art, update the book's metadata itself, remove it from the library if you need to for any reason, or to preview the book and make sure that the reading experience looks good to your end users. In addition to simply uploading the books, you might have seen on some of the screenshots that Dwayne and Anne provided, we have what are called curated lists, which are essentially just virtual bookshelves for users, giving businesses the ability to organize their content instead of simply having one large page of all of their uploaded books. We allow everyone the opportunity to create divided sections that make the most sense to that content, organizing it and making it easier for the end user to find what they're looking for. In this example, in the top right, you can see that we have created lists for leadership books, engineering and technology books, and so forth. This gives an ability to allow users to drill down only into the areas they're interested in, skimming past the content that maybe they were not going into that library to look for. Right below that, you'll actually see an example of what one of those curated lists looks like, where we have brought over some of the engineering and technology titles from the library, giving one siloed view of the content for a specific genre that somebody might be looking for. Like Dwayne mentioned, one of the big things that we try to focus on is protecting publisher content, giving publishers and content creators the ability to sell and share their content without losing or worrying about it escaping out into the internet where it isn't protected and is no longer monetized by them. What you can see on the left is an example view of editing a book's metadata. This is where you'll see all of the basic information that you're normally used to when reading a book, such as title, summary, authors, even the ISBN, all of which are searchable in the library to drill down even further when you're trying to find a specific title or genre of content. We also allow users to create categories and even tags, just another way to further drill into that information. And below that, what you'll see is the opportunity to either enable viewing or hiding a book title from your library if for any reason you wanted to remove it from circulation, either briefly or permanently. You have the option to simply go in there, and that is immediately takes effect. Right below that, though, this is one of the first DRM content that we have where you can actually limit the number of devices. So BookFusion supports per licensing on books, which means that however many copies you purchase is how many you're licensed for, and that restricts how many people can simultaneously read it. This means for publishers, if a business only purchases one title from you, they cannot then release that one title to 500 users within their organization simultaneously. Similar to a public library with physical books, it is on a per license basis, which means however many licenses they purchase, that's how many people can read it simultaneously. This gives publishers the ability to sell and license more than one copy of the same digital title. And that then allows organizations for businesses and educations to increase the number of copies that are allowed to be loaned out simultaneously to the end users in their organization. You also have the ability to customize how long somebody can borrow it, keeping that wait period lower. If you do have a large organization and a low volume of titles, you can increase or decrease that loan period as works for your individual organization. Over to the right, you'll actually see a little bit more of a breakdown of our digital rights and DRM. What you'll see is we have an option to enable or disable DRM. When it's disabled, that will actually allow users to download copies directly to their computer, removing it from BookFusion entirely. Some examples of times where this would be allowed would be on content that an organization has put together that is not copyright protected, something that they are encouraging distribution up to others, such as some of the Parkinson's Voice Project content that they create and encourage their subscribers to read on or off BookFusion and print out. Same content goes for instance, public domain books that are still produced and put on the platform, but are not DRM locked, allowing users to read them off of BookFusion if they so choose. You are able to indicate the rights that you want to enforce for these titles as a publisher and a content provider, whether it's in the public domain, whether it's yours and it's not in the public domain, or whether you've purchased it and you have the right to distribute a certain amount of licenses based on what you have purchased. Right below that, you'll see an increased number of options specific to that digital rights management, which will allow you to further control exactly what actions can take place in your books. That means, are users able to highlight and copy text out of the book and paste it into a Word document or another platform? Are they allowed to borrow a book from your library and then further loan that book out to their own friends using BookFusion's social platform? We also limit the number of unique devices as a way to protect content providers from somebody who might, for instance, create an account and then share those credentials, similar to how Netflix protects their accounts and does not allow mass content sharing using passwords. We do the same thing here. This allows publishers to know that one account is not being used across hundreds or thousands of users, because we would notice how many unique devices are being used on that login and prevent further distribution of the title until we ascertain why it's going out so widely. We also have options for allowing printing. In some educational texts, we have publishers who encourage the students who are reading to actually review and print that material and make notes physically or take it with them into class. Some content providers choose not to allow printing of physical pages or to restrict exactly what percentage is allowed to be taken out of the platform. All of that is controlled here within the books update data page that you're seeing. Towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see on the left here an option of what it shows like when a user has borrowed a book from your digital library. Based on this title that we see on the screen, we have a limit of 1 copy for 30 days. And so in this instance, a user has borrowed that copy and it shows on their bookshelf that they have 30 days remaining in that loan. If another user were to go behind them and try to borrow it additionally, they would see the option that it's already been loaned out and is not currently available for loan. One of our highly requested features that we're actually very excited to get released in the upcoming months, early 2022, is a queue system that will allow users to actually step into a queue and wait for the title to be released by anybody previously, which will simultaneously allow us to see what the desire for a title is and give our organizations the ability to notice if a title that they only have a single licensed copy and it has 50 people queued up waiting for it, that gives them the indication that it might be time to review the number of licenses they have and reach out to our publishers to purchase additional licenses in order to satisfy the needs of their end users. What we have here is a little bit of a look of what you already saw in An's presentation, which is just a look at how we display books when they are being read. You have sliding progress at the bottom. You have options that pop out over to the right here that give you multiple options for a standard view, a sepia view, even a dark mode with varying shades of black backgrounds and white text. You can increase and decrease font size, margins both on the text and in between lines. We allow indefinite vertical scrolling, or you can do natural scrolling, which emulates pages of a paper book. You can even customize the colors yourself if you want to go beyond the default themes that we provide. It's a highly customizable interface that allows users to create exactly what makes them comfortable in their reading environment. Here at the bottom, you'll see a snapshot of what our highlights screen looks like. As users read in your environment, we actually encourage them to create highlights, something that in a physical book would mark up the book, but here you have the ability to do that without actually disrupting your reading experience, and then gives you a much faster and cumulative way to go back and look at the highlights that were made. You can even add your own personal notes to it. Dwayne and An both mentioned that we have social features that are continuing to roll out. One of those features is going to allow organizations who have their own book clubs or encouraged reading among teams to share things like their highlights and their notes, giving them the ability to really come together in a digital platform in a way that doesn't truly exist anywhere else, to have a discussion on the chapters they're reading, the highlights they're making, the notes that they're adding, to really bring a corroborative discussion into the reading environment. Over here on the right, you'll see just a breakdown of a table of contents for a book like this one, one of our most requested titles, which is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Having a digital content like this allows you to skip back and forth as you need. You'll see that you not only have a breakdown of the table of contents, but there's a section where you can make bookmarks, easily jumping back and forth to different sections. You can also see in the bottom screenshot of those highlights, it indicates in each highlight exactly which section those highlights came from, allowing you to know if you wanted to go back and revisit a certain section because it had more important notes to you than others. These are all just a quick overview of some of the features that we have, both for protecting content from publishers, but also to make a really robust and exciting reading experience for our end users and for the businesses that manage those reading environments for their employees or their students. So I appreciate the opportunity to share with you.
Thanks, Dean, and thank you, Dwayne and An, for your presentations as well. One of the questions actually goes back to something that you said toward the beginning of the webinar today, Dwayne, you drew a parallel to music. And the question is the move to subscriptions that's evident in the consumption of music content something that you anticipate is going to be also the case with book content? Or are they different in that regard?
I would say the market is different in that regard. So in terms of subscriptions for book content, we don't really see the latest release titles being placed into a subscription model. But however, where we could see subscription having a bigger uptake is when publishers want to monetize their back catalog. And so in that regard, I would say the ebook industry is different from the music industry in terms of that subscription model.
Great, thanks. You talked about ministries of education, of course, not a term that we typically use in the United States, where education has a relatively small footprint at the federal level. Is this a particularly good use for getting English language content into countries that might otherwise be hard to sell into?
Yep, most definitely. So, and I guess you could just see the ministries of educations as districts, or I guess higher level government organizations, but similarly to the partnerships that you see we have in place with Oxford University Press, Macmillan, and so on, these entities, large educational entities, are the ones that really drive the adoption, as you mentioned, English-speaking content in these regions. And so they're a good entity to partner with if, as a publisher, you want to get exposure to new markets, and you can partner with them by partnering with BookFusion.
Are you seeing demand for other languages as well? I mean, are people asking you for content in local languages?
Yeah, so I would not say local languages, but what we have seen is demand for content in, let's even use Akamai. Akamai has staff in Poland, and so they would also sometimes want to look at some Polish content. We're talking with a client now in Asia, where they're looking for content in various languages. And Dean, you could remind me, Mandarin and a few other languages. The ministries, again, in the Caribbean region, they're looking for content also in Mandarin and also in Spanish as well.
Dean, did you want to weigh in on that, or just agree?
Yeah, happy to. Like Dwayne mentioned, we do have conversations where we have some desire to see content in all kinds of different languages, both in Asia. We have some South American requests, specifically for Portuguese in Brazil. The great thing about BookFusion is we already natively support the upload of ebooks that are formatted in any of those languages. So anybody who has content already or purchases content from a publisher that we're partnered with that is in those languages absolutely has the ability to upload that. Part of the options for reading in BookFusion supports multiple formats, including left to right reading, as well as reversing that for right to left reading. So we are fully prepared and capable to support more than just your standard English format books and the way that a native English speaker might read.
You gave a pretty strong statement right at the outset of your presentation. The problem that you faced, multiple ebook formats was part of it, siloed platforms and communities, and limited sharing and social options. I mean, there's a strong argument there for BookFusion, but I think as well, it's probably a little bit of an indictment for the book publishing business. Should we be thinking about being more effective in reaching customers who may not be our traditional markets?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think it's definitely going to be great to add more books to our current catalog today, or Dwayne's BookFusion catalog, just to reach more folks. I think that's the issue today, is that we're just trying to grow the repository and be able to kind of meet our customers' needs.
Your sound has gotten a little bit lighter in this part. I'm not sure if it's whether
Sorry,
you're.
Can you hear me okay now?
That is much better. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. I think we just want to definitely, I think, is to continue to grow the repository just through these relationships with the publishers that Dwayne is going to work with and team there, just so that their needs will be fully met for the learning process for their teams and their business needs.
And Dwayne, are you seeing, I know that you talked a little bit, and Anand did as well, about the effort to create more seamless ordering. That's a work in progress, but are you seeing openness on the part of publishers or the publishing community to be more flexible about formats, DRM and the like?
If I'm honest, not flexibility that would expect. Negotiations with publishers unfortunately tend to take a year or multiple years, and so during that time there are missed opportunities because organizations that would have adopted and purchased content from you willingly, they're banging down the doors to say, just take my money, we want the content. They can't get the content because you have to go through this long process to get the rights and get the content onboarded. And so like right now, when the pandemic, even though it has been very bad, it has also provided opportunities for the publishers to not allow platforms to control their future, but they can take the lead by distributing that power amongst multiple platforms to allow folks to increase revenue for them. And so we haven't seen that flexibility. And so we hope that we see more flexibility with publishers and distributors to onboard content with new platforms so that customers like Akamai, Ministries, Parkinson, and other organizations that have reached out to us can get the content that they need.
And I think particularly when selling into the business market, there's it's essentially the equivalent of what had been special sales, and those are generally smaller and harder won parts of publishers' business. It sounds like BookFusion as a platform provides an entrance to a corporate market that otherwise is difficult to negotiate.
Exactly, most definitely, and Dean could add. So what we do based on the solution that we provide, we do not approach these entities by just offering to sell them ebooks. And so because we provide a hybrid approach where we help them curate their own internal content, training manuals, videos, and now these enterprises and corporations are now using the solution, it's just now easy for them to just also license content. And that is usually the next step, is licensing additional content to complement their growing repository. And so that makes it easy for us to upsell and license content to these corporations that, as you mentioned, Brian, would be harder to reach out to directly.
Great. Dean, did you want to weigh in on that?
I think what Dwayne said was perfect. We have a situation where the demand for books is very high. Unfortunately, supply is a little bit harder to acquire in some instances, but we are seeing that it's definitely coming. It's just coming a little bit slower. And there's a huge opportunity here for publishers to get in on the ground floor as digital continues to skyrocket in demands, where we have so many organizations who are just excited to get this content, and in many cases are buying in bulk. They want more than one license. We're seeing situations where organizations are not wanting one license for 10 titles. They're wanting 30 licenses for 500 titles to populate their university's library or their business organization's library for all of their employees. And so there are some huge opportunities here for publishers to get in on the ground floor as this continues to jump in popularity. And we're really excited to be a part of that as it continues to take off.
Maybe I can stay with you for this next question. There was a question about how the metadata that you described in your part of the talk today gets into the BookFusion platform.
Yeah, I'd be happy to address that.
Because we love metadata.
Yes, we do too. What happens is actually any time an ebook is put together, whether that's an EPUB or a MOBI file or even PDFs, most of that metadata is already encoded in the book file itself. In the sense of a PDF, it's in those file properties that are created when you're originating the file. For EPUBs, it's done as you're designing and creating it from the beginning. It's embedded in the file, and when it's uploaded into BookFusion, it's already there for you. You absolutely can make adjustments to it. You can add additional authors if you feel like somebody didn't get as much credit as they should have in the byline. You can add notes, you can add tags and categories, but the majority of that is already going to be there when you bring it in from the publishers themselves from when they created the content. So the great thing is if you're mass purchasing hundreds of titles to upload them into your BookFusion library for your organization, as Anand will testify, I'm sure, it is not a case of having to individually go into each title and populate it with all of the information. It's already going to be there for you to tweak as needed. But that information in the metadata is what allows those users to go into their library and search, whether by the book title, by a tag if they're looking for a specific topic, or even to filter based on authors of titles for content that they know that they're looking for. So that metadata is definitely brought in with it, and then you just have the ability to adjust it as desired.
And just to add to Dean's question as well, answer as well, we do support Onyx, and so for some content, we import metadata from the Onyx protocol, and so that's automatically populated as well. A third option for some publishers that might not support Onyx, what we would do, we provide them with a templated CSV, and they could then just drop that in a FTP directory, and we'll automatically extract that metadata as well. So what we do, we know that metadata is important for both business organization and publishers. And so we make it really easy for publishers to give us this metadata. You don't have Onyx, no problem. You can use Excel or CSV, or you can just embed it in the EPUB as Dean mentioned.
Yeah, and we've had the work within our workflow committee, I think, Dwayne, as you know, where we're trying to think of ways to create workflows where Onyx can be used to better inform certain aspects of, for example, to describe accessibility. The challenge is that not every publisher is embedding the kind of information that you want, particularly for things like accessibility in an EPUB file, for example. So we don't have a solution for it yet. We're continuing to work on it, but I think ultimately the answer we have probably will be based in Onyx more than the EPUB file itself. We do both, but and we recommend both. Is there anything that before we wrap up that you want to just touch on or emphasize, what people should take away from today's conversation? I think that it's been really helpful in explaining both the need for platforms, particularly to reach markets like education and business or professional content consumption. But maybe there's something else that you haven't had a chance to touch on that you want to draw out.
I guess not right now per se, but I guess just some closing remarks, and I'll see if Dean or Ann has any closing remark. Is that when you look at the pandemic, it just simply speed up existing trends, and so what we see in this space is that from, as I mentioned, from small business, 25 persons working, they are looking for digital library solutions to large enterprises. And so the most watchful and agile publishers will be the ones that are able to capitalize on this opportunity and lock into recurring revenue. As most of us here know, once you partner with businesses or enterprises, they rarely cancel. And so that retention is very high. And so that's an opportunity for publishers to have new revenue, but long-term and sustainable revenue.
Thanks, Dwayne. And while I turn to Dean and to Ann, perhaps you had a slide, I think, that had some contact information at the end of your presentation. If you want to just put that up so people who have an interest know how to get a hold of you. But Dean, from your perspective, what's the takeaway for today?
I think the takeaway is just that BookFusion is here, and we have a great platform that kind of covers both sides of the fields. We're here to support both the publishers in their desire to get their content into the hands of the users who would like to make use of it, but we're also here to fully support the organizations that want to make use of that content. So we're kind of in the middle, straddling the line, ready to help both sides of the fence. And I think we have a great platform to do it. As publishers continue to get more and more on board with supporting digital content and providing it in more than one place, they'll see that we have a great area to do it where it can protect their content while also making sure that it reaches the largest audience possible.
And An, you represent that group that we care the most about in book publishing, is people who buy books.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we onboarded BookFusion, I think, at the start of the pandemic. I think that's when folks were starting to work remotely from their homes, you know, and a digital library solution such as BookFusion just became a valuable resource for our company, just to be able to learn and empower them to upload and assign certain team members to certain, I say, like, we can create our own custom curriculums, for example, where users can create them, add certain titles to them, and then assign them out to certain folks. So that has been really helpful for teams as they onboarded new members of the team, for example, and just being able, after that, just being able to request custom content from their current repository today. And as I said, it's continued to grow, and that's been a great resource for us, as it's been just being able to get the content that our users actually need and want, and just be able to provide that for them has been invaluable.
Well, thank you for that. And I imagine that that also provides a basis for some degree of bonding or cultural engagement, because, you know, if you're all reading the same text, whether it's on cybersecurity or management or any other topic that's relevant to your staff, then it gives people a basis to both agree and have a conversation. Dwayne, Dean, and thank you very much for being here today, for sharing this information, and for challenging us to think a little bit more broadly, both about the audiences that book publishing products can reach, as well as the way that we should organize our work to reach them. I just saw a question just come in. It might be just Paula saying thank you and giving you a brief round of applause for this work. But thank you from me as well for being here today and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.